bad guys, the online influencers. He's clearly talking about, sort of the manosphere that helped get Trump elected. They're bad. And then how do we kick them back under a rock? The leftist instinct to silence, always there when it's not their POV. And then just the cherry on top, they're all racist and misogynist. You couldn't, if I sent you into a back room with a bot and you were to program it to say the things that the left believes about the right half of America, that's what you'd come out with.
Everyone keeps saying the Minnesota Nice routine finally cracked. And if you watch this week's interviews, you felt it in your bones. The smile didn't save him, the soft voice didn't soothe anyone, and the folksy anecdotes landed like excuses. Here's the headline people are repeating out loud. The charm ran out. Yes, we're talking about Tim Walz, and yes, the core story is simple. High-profile hosts pressed him on the
The team comes on the field, we will all stand up and cheer. To the other team we'll never yield, and we won't forget we're here. We will fight for victory and win. We will conquer every...
Zoom gloss, the timeline slips, and the weapons of war phrasing, and the contradictions didn't vanish under studio lights. That's the news. Now let's pull it apart without blinking. If you clicked because you heard he got grilled on claiming he carried weapons of war, you're in the right place. If you clicked because you heard...
That term's been thrown around quite a bit when it comes to Governor Tim Walz, the running mate of Kamala Harris, in this race in connection with his National Guard service. Many men who served with Governor Walz when he was in the National Guard and who served under him have come forward to accuse him of that sin, stealing valor from the men he served with by inflating his military rank and by abandoning
the timeline around Tiananmen and Hong Kong keeps shifting. You're also in the right place. And if you clicked because you're watching a governor on a national edition tour trying to make small town or a carry big league scrutiny, I've got you. This matters because once a politician's brand is reassuring confidence, every wobble reads like a warning light on the dashboard. Voters can forgive a stumble. They don't forgive a pattern. The stakes are real. Policy trust.
You raise your hand if you think Tim Walz is guilty of cutting and running as opposed to serving in Iraq.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
Trust, crisis trust, character trust. Quick proof, 2 interviews, 2 different sets of basic challenges on service, on dates, on crisis decisions, produced answers that sounded less like correction and more like corralling. Here's the roadmap for today. First, the image versus the record. The steady
Tim Walz, but it's on Gavin Newsom's podcast Tuesday.
You got to respect people you disagree with, and you can't just dismiss people. This
How do you fight it?
This
I
notion
think
of
I could kick most of their ass. I do think that if they wanted to. I know I can go wrong, but I don't know if we're going to fall into that place where we want to. Okay, we challenge you to a WWE fight here type of thing.
No, but it's a natural reaction. I think it's one of the reasons we're losing so many men. And again, it's multi-ethnic. It's not just white men. We're losing them. We're losing them to these guys online. That's why I brought.
These are bad guys, though. These are bad guys.
But they exist, and we could deny they exist. They exist. Not only they exist, they persist, and they're actually influencing young kids every single day.
How do we push some of those guys back under a rock?
I think we have to first understand what their motivations are. I think we have to understand what they're actually doing. And
you don't think
that's
it's racism and misogyny?
That there's everything in there, right? Like, I'm going to kick their ass. Okay, sure, Jan. These are
Western dad persona against the file cabinet of misstatements. Then we'll hit the strongest point, crisis leadership, where expectation and reality ripped away from each other. After that, we'll work through the media tour moments, the policing and public safety contortions, the economy and education gap, the unifier myth, and the national...
First of all, it was up to him. I wouldn't have a family because of IVF. My kids were born through that, that way.
His campaign office in April mailed out a fundraising letter that read, "My wife and I used IVF." That's a quote. They are now clarifying that they used IUI. The defense of all this, he was using commonly understood shorthand for fertility treatments. In vitro fertilization is different from IUI, intrauterine insemination. And the only reason to say they're the same thing, to say you got IVF when you really had IUI, political purposes. He wanted to land a political hit on J.D. Vance to perpetuate the lie that he wants to ban IVF.
That's the thing, even with this IUI, IVF, even the command sergeant major rank, even this DUI story, lying about how fast he's going. All of these lies are finally catching up to this guy because the press has kept them hidden here locally for so long.
Ambition question you can't ignore. Keep an ear out. I'm dropping receipts and circling back to every hook I just opened. Let's start with the brand, because branding is the backbone of political survival. Walz has long sold himself as the corn-fed caretaker, casserole at the church potluck, handshake at the high school game.
Just a regular guy. This is how they keep trying to pass him off as. And it's amazing to me how he has so drastically changed in the last couple of weeks at these rallies. This animated character, jazzed up, coming out, bouncing around. I mean, this is a totally different person than I've covered before. It is wild to see this transformation.
That's interesting because the whole, he's kicking everything around and he's super enthusiastic.
We've never seen this guy before.
Story about coaching, a nod to the classroom. That image is armor, until it isn't. When interviewers asked about the weapons of war claim, the war zone service he didn't have, and then the Tiananmen/Hong Kong timeline, the armor dented. The defense leaned on pride in long service out of uniformed duty, on emotional sincerity, on the idea that he speaks like regular people speak. And sure, sincerity reads well on paper. But in the glare of TV lights, sincerity without specificity feels like a shrug. The public sentiment right now sounds like this. We don't want to hear about your emotions. We want to know if your words match your record. Here's where the expectation versus reality gap becomes the whole story. Expectation, a steady executive who gets the basics right, owns errors once, and moves forward clean. Reality, a series of corrections. Misspoke here, got the dates wrong there. Grammar somewhere else, until the corrections become the headline. That's not one bad day. That's a system failure in message discipline. And when your brand is calm competence, message discipline is the job. Mini cliffhanger. This same pattern shows up again when we get to pandemic decisions and public safety. Hold that thought, because the déjà vu is brutal. Application time. Why does the weapons of war phrasing matter beyond the dunking? Because it touches the policy arena he says he's passionate about: school safety, gun violence, and how to define and regulate certain firearms. If your moral urgency is real, the facts around your personal story must be locked. Any slip there turns opponents' arguments into easy layups. If the story's inflated, is the policy analysis inflated too? The framing is bigger than one sentence. It's about whether a governor campaigning for broader trust can narrate his own life without the audience grabbing a red pen. Now, strongest point second, because this is where the narrative either gets redeemed or gets roasted. Leadership under crisis. The pandemic and the social unrest that followed weren't pop quizzes. They were graduate-level finals with lives and livelihoods on the line. Expectation. A governor who balances public safety with civil liberties, who communicates with crisp clarity, who sticks to a consistent compass. Reality, as critics tell it, mandates that felt improvised, explanations that shifted like a forecast, and a posture that looked measured on camera but chaotic in execution. Calm is not competence. Calm is a tone. Competence is outcomes, timelines, metrics, and the rarest thing in politics, predictability. When rules change daily and priorities flip overnight, Minnesota Nice sounds like a lullaby over a fire alarm. Context makes this sharper. In the thick of it, residents wanted two things that seemed mutually exclusive: swift order and careful empathy. A leader has to reconcile that tension by choosing a principle and paying the political cost. What we saw, according to critics, was a governor trying to be the parent to both sides and getting grounded by both. Activists heard platitudes while waiting on structural decisions. Small business owners heard, "We're following the science," while the goalposts wandered. Parents heard just a little longer until a little longer turned into a season. Application. The aftermath lingers. Students are behind. Mental health is bruised. Commerce is still limping in pockets, and the audience is keeping receipts. Framing. The gap here is existential for any national pitch. Expectation was a builder. Reality looked like a manager of drift. Let's pivot. Pattern interrupt. Because there's a telling micro moment that says a lot about authenticity theater. The hunting clip. If you're going to lean into rural credibility, you can't look like the jacket still has the store tag on it. When a politician reaches for a cultural signal they don't wear every day, the camera catches the hesitation in the hands. That's not a felony. But in a campaign season, it's a felony on optics. Voters don't need you to be a caricature of their lifestyle. They need you to not cosplay it. Expectation. One of us. Reality. One of the consultant's PowerPoint slides. Back to the interviews. Open loop number 1 pays off. When Michael Strahan, a friendly, likable interviewer by default, asks about the many inconsistencies, that's not conservative media staging a hit. That's mainstream sunlight. The response leaned again on pride in long service, on classroom years, on emotion-forward language, and then, here's the tell, on how critics are attacking the family or the dog. That's the political equivalent of "look over there." It's meant to reframe scrutiny as cruelty. It also signals that the answer bank is dry. Viewers at home feel it. You probably felt it too. When the follow-up lands, "Did you misspeak?" The clock runs again on clarity. When the answer leans back into passion, grammar, and "I speak like regular people," the audience checks the scoreboard and sees no points added. Let's talk education and economy. Two places where talking points age fast. On education, the promise has been opportunity and equity. The results, as parents experience them, look like slipping proficiency, exhausted classrooms, and an accountability fog. You can fund inputs forever and still fail outcomes. That's not a dunk, it's a diagnosis. Application. Families who were promised renewal want receipts in reading and math, not another ribbon cutting. Framing. If your brand is teacher governor, test scores are your report card. Expectation. The classroom guy fixes the classroom. Reality. The classroom guy presides over the plateau and narrates his empathy on the economy. The spin has been stewardship, stability, strategic investment. Residents hearing from their accountants use shorter words. Taxes feel heavy, budgets feel bloated, and essential services feel not. Expectation. Pay more, get more. Reality. Pay more, get lines. This is where the optics versus outcomes theme becomes impossible to ignore. A press conference is a photograph. A paycheck is a measurement. One can be retouched. The other can't. Now, public safety, a minefield where contradictions make noise. On camera, the tone is pro-order, pro-law enforcement, pro-community calm. Off camera, when the activist flank yells loud enough, the spine seems to melt, at least as critics tell it. The governing posture feels like a paper plate at a barbecue, fine until you put anything heavy on it. Application. In moments of street-level crisis, citizens don't want a poet. They want a plan. Framing. If your leadership philosophy is "hear everyone," your operational philosophy must be "decide anyway." Otherwise, you get judged by the worst minute of the worst night, and that minute becomes your biography. Quick callback to the Tiananmen/Hong Kong timeline because you need to see how narrative drift corrodes trust.